18 states have some kind of limits on the amount of THC in your blood before you're considered under the influence of marijuana while driving. THC is what makes you high, but surprisingly, California not one of those states. And because of that, a local family believes the person responsible for their daughter's death got off with just a slap on the wrist.
I will sing with you, my friend.
She had a beautiful voice, yes.
It's hard. It's really hard. It's hard to think you'll never see her again.
This video shows Crystal Kazmark singing in front of her graduating class at Palos Verdes High in 2013. 7 years later, another video, this one celebrating Crystal's life after the 25-year-old was killed in a car accident.
Last Thanksgiving I had with my daughter.
Her mom, dad, and brother left with photo books and memories.
Music festivals. She loved going to music festivals.
I love my daughter with all my heart. I will miss her every moment of my life until I take my last breath on this earth.
Crystal was a passenger in a pickup truck driven by her boyfriend, Joshua Dougherty. She was working in Mammoth, the two riding down a road in the summer of 2020. The CHP accident report says Dougherty claimed he saw an unknown animal jerk the steering wheel to the left and collided with another vehicle. This is what's left of the truck. Crystal was killed instantly.
It just doesn't seem right.
When her dad heard about the accident, he thought of what he says he witnessed with Dougherty's driving.
I knew that he liked to get stoned. I'd see him in his car getting stoned before he'd drive.
You would see that?
I would saw that. I'm like, what? That's why we talked to Crystal. Like, look, he's getting high in the car before he goes anywhere. That's his thing. Stop, get high, and then drive. What's wrong with that? That's nuts.
Dougherty even admitted using marijuana the day of the accident. According to this probation report, he said he was a habitual cannabis user and disclosed he had smoked a couple of bowls of cannabis earlier in the day of the accident, but he claimed it wouldn't cause him to be impaired. Investigators concluded Dougherty was untruthful about trying to avoid hitting an animal and was likely under the influence at the time of the crash. He was cited with a felony, murder, and DUI, drugs and alcohol causing injuries. Crystal's mother, Mary, says she had warned him in the past.
And I even confronted him once when he was smoking and he was going to be driving, and I reminded him that he's got my daughter in the car, and I told him that if he ever did anything that harmed her, I would haunt him, and I'm the one being haunted now.
Court records show they found 18 nanograms of THC in Dougherty's blood. According to the National Institutes of Health, THC is the substance that's primarily responsible for the effects of marijuana on a person's mental state. The 18 nanograms would be well above the legal limits set in 18 states that have marijuana-impaired driving laws, according to the National Council of State Legislators, including Colorado, which has a limit of 5 nanograms.
Juries, I think, like to see a number.
Glenn Davis is the highway safety manager for the Colorado Department of Transportation. Is it working?
If you have a high nanogram level, your likelihood of conviction is great.
But unlike other states, California has no legal limits on THC while driving. Dougherty was just charged with a misdemeanor. He pleaded guilty to vehicular manslaughter, sentenced to 1 year in jail.
What do you think about it? You think
what I think about it? I think he's getting away with murder. He murdered somebody, he's going to get away with it.
Investigators also found this is the second time someone in Dougherty's car has died in an accident. The other time in 2010 wasn't drug or alcohol related.
This guy was involved with 2 accidents where 2 people died. Why not throw the book at him?
Mono County Assistant DA Todd Graham says he couldn't do it because there's no law on the books, even though a CHP drug expert said the charges should be reconsidered, and so did the probation department, which recommended a felony.
We looked at this case as, how are we going to do that? That's the question. How are we going to put that together?
Graham says without actual legal limits on THC, it wouldn't stick. even though the California Vehicle Code states it's unlawful for a person who's under the influence of any drug to drive a vehicle.
We would like to see California engage in studies that deal with at what level are you unsafe to drive with regard to marijuana.
But it's not that easy.
It's very, very dangerous to rely solely upon a THC measurement.
Assemblyman Tom Lackey of Palmdale, a former CHP officer who's seen his share of impaired drivers, says more studies have to be done to see how much THC is too much.
Impairment is the focus, and relying solely upon a measurement of THC can be inconclusive, and that's what's dangerous about it.
Godfrey Perlson is doing studies on THC and driving for the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. They found that THC stays in your system much longer than alcohol, so a simple limit just wouldn't work.
We've shown that the impairment of driving behavior lasts a few hours at most, whereas the THC persists in the person's system much, much longer than that.
Her friend Sarah on a road trip 6 months before she passed away.
The Kazmarks know none of this will bring Crystal back, but they hope her death could help others live.
If there was a limit, perhaps people would stop and think before they did it, and maybe more lives would be saved.
Now, Dougherty, through his attorney, had no comment. He declined our request for an interview. Looking forward, California has earmarked about $2 million this year to study the effects of THC while driving, hoping to come up with some kind of standard like the other states do, but looking at it in a scientific way as opposed to just throwing numbers out.
Well, it sounds like it's really hard because it stays in your system for so long, and I would guess that even if it's detectable in your system, it may not mean that you're impaired. So how do you...
That's what they're looking at. In Colorado, they say they're using some kind of measurement of THC, which is more recent. Somehow they can show you, but the scientists still aren't sure of that. So it's really unusual because these states have legalized marijuana, right, but haven't come up with a way to measure how much is too much to drive.
Right, it's all about quantifying it, right? If it's cocaine or something else, you know if it's in your system
or
recently.
Alcohol.
Or alcohol.
Everyone's looking in there, and the parents are saying, hey, when the .08 went in and all everyone going, stop drinking, people, thought about it before they took an extra drink and drove, and they're looking at something here as well.
Yeah.